Hey everyone. Today's episode is to explore the rising rents in Colorado Springs. You've heard us mention on previous podcasts that often the actual rents have come in higher than pro formas for a good part of this year. So Jenny spent some time, did some research, and has some great data to share with us on rent trends and rent updates for the Springs market. Jenny, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Chris?
Good, really good. I'm excited to go through here because you did all the work that I want to do myself. You pull all the data. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think that it's we've been so focused on talking about asset valuations increasing so much. We've kind of glossed over, I would say, the past couple of months, a really important component, rental property investing. So the inventory as well, into the rental supply.
So jump in here. Where's the data going to start at, Jenny?
So I think that, while real estate is local, I think that it's important to kind of do a quick zoom out real quick. So for the US as a whole and see what's happening across the nation in terms of a systemic economic observation. And then we'll kind of drill down a little bit more specifically to Colorado Springs. So I found just some Zillow research. It was posted July 19th by Jeff Tucker in an article called Inventory Jumps Again as the Market Continues to Sizzle, June 2021 market report. And these stats are just like wild to me. So he said that the median rent nationwide increased over 7% year over year from June 2020 to June 2021. And from May to June 2021, a 3.1% jump with a median rental price nationwide of $1,800 a month. So
That's
that's wild, right?
it's a big jump. And
Mhm.
$1,800 for the national rent, that just seems a lot higher than I expected it to be.
Same. I was honestly shocked when I saw that because, I kind of think of, even Colorado Springs as starting to become a higher cost of living area. And, we're not at 1,800. So it's just kind of interesting to see that. And then kind of another interesting little factoid nationwide is while rents grew 7% year over year, housing prices grew 15% year over year. So it's at a much faster rate than what the rent growth is, even though both are incredibly high at this point. So I don't know if you remember us talking about this about a year or so ago, but if you have a copy of the 2021 Guide to Colorado Real Estate Investing Strategies, in the Colorado Springs Market Trends section of the book, I have a pretty in-depth example of something that kind of stood out to me as a rental trend for Colorado Springs, that our rent rates were not growing at the same rate that our property values were growing. So I think that is something to keep an eye on, because if I had to guess, if something works today as a rental, it may not work 6 months from now to a year from now, just based on the pace in which everything is growing.
Yeah, I know the section and the chart or the graph you're talking about. It's a great, outline and growth that you did on there. So if you guys want to copy the book, email us. We can send one in the mail to you, no problem. They're on Amazon too if you can get the Kindle version. But regardless, email us. We're happy to send you a copy of that book.
Mm-hmm. Just something to echo that we've been discussing is that, if something works today, you get cheap debt today. So I don't see anything really changing for the better in the near future, in terms of being able to acquire at a cheaper rate. I don't know. What about you, Chris?
No, if you're a long-term investment horizon, it still makes sense. Property numbers are still good today. You're locking in cheap debt.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to change in a year. My guess is prices will go up slightly, or maybe a little bit more significantly as well. Interest rates maybe the same, a little bit higher. So I'd rather, go with today, which is buy another rental property.
Yeah.
But Jenny, you've talked about national trends. What about local trends in the Springs?
Yeah. So that was the national trends. Springs is not much different. So I was able to grab an article by Rich Layden in the Gazette, which is the local newspaper down here. And he updated it on July 12th of this year. And it was an article titled Apartment Rents in Colorado Springs Soar to Another Record High. And something that he wrote that really stuck out to me was he has a quote in here that says, "Soaring rents have become the norm over the past few years for the Springs apartment market. Beginning in 2019, record highs have been set in 6 of the last 9 quarters, and this is through COVID." So that really stuck out to me. I thought that was really interesting. And then he also mentioned some highlights of the first quarter report on Colorado Springs rents and vacancy rates, written by Ron Throop and Jennifer Von Stroh. So they did a whole rent and vacancy study, and they found that average rents for year over year rose to about $13.33 a month, which is up 9.4% year over year. Which is more than $57 a month more than the previous record high, which, I mean, 9.5%. That's very, very steep, in my opinion, in 1 year. I know we've talked about this, but we underwrite at like 3 to 4% a year. So to almost double, triple that, that's significant. And some of the just snapshots here, they have studio apartments at $10.35 a month, 1 bed, 1 bath at $1,200 a month, 2 bed, 2 bath at $1,568 a month, which that's way above what we're charging for our 2-bedroom houses, and 3 bedrooms at $1,750 a month. So that's that's a very, very steep growth.
Yeah, those are all very strong numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both just from a dollar amount and percentage wise. And you made the comment too that we underwrite 3% or so for rent growth, because I mean, reality is 9% rent growth annually is not sustainable. It's not going to happen every single year. This is I think a spike in it. But again, this is what we shoot for. Hey, let's plan realistically and conservatively, and hopefully we hit at a minimum. Or ideally, the market gives us a nice surprise and we'll take it and be happy with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, personally, just like you said, 9.5% year over year, that is not sustainable on a yearly basis. Affordability is going to have to come into play at some point. So I think it's still important to kind of consider what the wages in the area are and what that would be able to yield, and what is not burdensome on the tenant population. So, I mean, 10% a year, that is enough to really impact pretty much everyone, I would assume, if their living costs increase by that much. So yeah, I don't think that it would continue that way. But yeah, so vacancy rates, which is the silent killer of rental profits. This is for across all apartments. They are at 5%. So I'm not sure if you remember, but there is a study that single family and smaller apartment buildings in Colorado Springs have typically an effective vacancy rate of close to 0.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah. And then just kind of an interesting factoid that apparently apartments were the toughest to find in the Security Widefield area, which is, Realtor.com's hottest zip code. I know we've plugged that area a bunch of times. I'm really kind of into that region, and it had a vacancy rate of 1.9%, which, I mean, I don't even know if you can turn over a unit that quickly. Like it takes a week or so to get a unit turned over. So that's probably what it's accounting for. It would be my guess on that.
So obviously we've had a big spike in rents. Vacancy is staying low on here. Is just like a basic supply and demand issue?
I think so. Yeah. If I had
Okay.
to guess, that would be my assumption as well.
Because what's the? I mean, I know the stats here in Denver, but for like just growth or new inventory coming on, how much is Springs growing? Or do you know?
So I don't know in terms of overall population. I do know
Okay.
that this article mentioned that 250 units were added to the rental inventory, but I know that there's a lot more than 250 people moving into or families moving into the city. So it's gonna have.
250, is that over quarter one?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
is insignificant.
it's very very low, very very low. So I don't know what they're going to do. I've seen a lot of news articles of these fancy high-rise type apartments getting built. I mean, I'm sure it will take probably a year or two for them to be done with construction, but it's definitely interesting to see those starting to pop up along the skyline for sure. Is nothing that we had seen prior to a year or so ago.
So what does all this mean for the landlord?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that is just important to be cognizant. I mean, yeah, it's very wild to me. I would say that if you do have a tenant turnover, then, be mindful of what the market rents are. If you have a good tenant, I would not squeeze them. That's a very significant change. So I would, just maybe take a look at how your costs are increasing because, costs are increasing to operate. But I would not do a significant a significant surcharge on a lease renewal for sure. Maybe $5-10. I think that's fair. But yeah, it's some point this is going to have to level out. So if you can make hay while the sun shines and you have a tenant turnover and your unit is in a spot where you'd be able to kind of realize some of these higher rent rates, go for it. Don't expect it. Don't get greedy.
Jenny, this data has been great. And a lot of this data will be, linked and posted in the show notes and the blog post on the page too. If you guys, want to go back and look at the data or be able to scan it quickly. So go check the show notes. And if you want to copy the 2021 book, feel free to email us. We're happy to send you a copy of there. And of course, if you want to invest in the Springs or have an existing, portfolio down there and you want to optimize it or go out there, buy more properties, reach out to Jenny. I mean, she's in a great position where she's an active investor herself. She knows the market. She's got a great financial background. So she's great at like helping people put together strategies and executing their plans in the Springs. So I got to give you a plug there, Jenny, because
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
I get a couple of emails every month saying, "Hey, been working with Jenny. She's awesome." I'm like, "Great!" It's all great feedback, and you're doing a great job down there. So if you guys have any questions on the Springs, reach out to Jenny. Jenny, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a great one, everyone.